In the name of God of kindness. Hello friends. How are you? Persepolis. Takht Jamshid is a symbol of glory and greatness in ancient Iran and one of the must-see places in Iran. Perhaps the Persepolis region and the remaining buildings in it can be considered as one of the most important documents of the history of civilization in the world. Therefore, prominent scientists and archaeologists from all over the world have traveled to Iran to visit Persepolis. Takht Jamshid is a relic of the Achaemenid kings in Iran since 2,500 years ago. Considering the greatness of the Achaemenid Empire in ancient Iran, which included a significant part of the eastern part of the world, one can realize the glory of the headquarters of these kings in Persepolis. What draws the world's attention to Persepolis is not only the history of this ancient city. Archaeologists have realized the advanced civilization in ancient Iran from the detailed study of the inscriptions and works obtained from this region. The social laws of the Achaemenid era have also surprised many historians. Persepolis is known in the world as a symbol of the Persian civilization of Iran. The site of Persepolis, which is one of the most famous places in Fars province and is located near Marudasht in Shiraz, shows the architectural splendor of the palace of the kings in the ancient Iranian era. At the height of their power, the Achaemenid kings built their stone palaces in the heart of the mountain and near the city of Shiraz to leave a clear picture of the extent of their rule for future generations. Persepolis is known in the world as Persepolis, which is the Greek name. The columns, capitals, inscriptions, reliefs, palaces, and gates remaining in the grounds of Persepolis are among the most famous works of civilization in the world. The area of Persepolis, which is also known as Land of Persia, attracts many tourists from all over the world to Shiraz throughout the year. The construction of Persepolis was started about 25 centuries ago by Dariush Akhameneshi at the foothills of Ramat Mountains. Countless architects and artists participated in the construction of Persepolis, and these huge buildings were built by male and female workers. But what adds to the value of Persepolis in history is the way the Achaemenid kings treated the workers, who in ancient Iran paid them appropriate salaries and benefits for the labor of the workers. According to the information in the inscriptions, the construction of Persepolis took about 120 years. The outstanding culture of the rulers of ancient Iran during the Achaemenid period has made the civilization of ancient Iran twice as famous in the world. The construction of the buildings of Persepolis dates back to 518 BC, that is, more than 2,500 years ago. Darius I, who was the third Achaemenid king, ordered the construction of a huge palace in the mountains around Marvdasht, but the stages of building mansions and statues of Persepolis took a long time and continued during the period of the next kings. Each of the existing palaces in Persepolis was built during the time of one of the Achaemenid kings. The splendor and beauty of Persepolis still amaze designers and engineers today. To the extent that they don't consider it easy to build such a huge collection in the present time and despite the wide possibilities. According to the inscriptions left by the Achaemenians in different places, Dariush's purpose in building this building can be seen as leaving a symbol of progressive ancient Iran. In order to build palaces and mansions, workers were busy digging mountains and leveling foothills for several years. The main material used in the construction of palaces was stone, which was used with different strengths. Shaving stones and polishing them in large pieces and carrying them to a height is one of the most interesting parts of building palaces, which attracts the attention of today's engineers, architects, and designers. The construction and completion of the palaces of Persepolis continued until the end of the Achaemenid period. But many parts of these buildings were built and decorated during the time of Darius I, Xerxes Shah and Ardashir I. The luxurious palaces of Persepolis were the residences of the Achaemenid kings for many years and are still considered to be one of the most prominent and lasting historical documents of ancient Iran. The choice of the mountains around Marv by Darius I was also very smart, considering the location of the mountain in relation to the sunrise and sunset, the green plains in its surroundings and the location of this area on the Royal Road. In recent years, due to many damages to the buildings of Persepolis, this area has been restored many times. In 1309 the reconstruction of Persepolis was under the supervision of the American Archaeological Group, and during the excavation operation, the inscription of Kashayar Shah was discovered, and in this way they were able to identify the palace of the Queen of Kashayar Shah. A few years later, by a German group in 1314 A.H. The restoration of part of the inscriptions and the strength of the palaces and columns of Apadana Palace was done. The process of reconstruction continued until 1319 which led to the discovery of many works and inscriptions from this area. Most of these works are located in the Persepolis Museum, and some of the discovered works are kept in the National Museum of Iran. Unfortunately, many works have left Iran and have been placed in museums and libraries in Europe and America. In recent years, measures have been taken to further protect the site of Persepolis and the ancient works in it, and the reconstruction of its various parts is still ongoing. The glory of Persepolis lasted until Alexander the Great invaded Iran. In 334 BC, Alexander the Great attacked Iran with his troops, and after reaching the seat of the Achaemenid kingdom, he looted the houses and burned the heritage of Persepolis. Alexander's hatred and grudge against the powerful Achaemenid kings caused Alexander to set fire to Xerxes Shah's palace, but the fire spread to other places and caused the destruction of large parts of Persepolis. Before the destruction of Persepolis, the Achaemenid palaces and mansions were very scenic due to being located in one of the best places in Iran at the foot of Mount Ramat or Mer, which was also called Mitra, and had a beautiful view of the surrounding valleys and plains. Inside Persepolis, there was an area similar to a town, and the distance between the palaces was marked by a street. The interior design of Persepolis has been very advanced according to today's engineering and architectural standards, and order and modern design can be seen in the division of inner neighborhoods. The palaces of Persepolis had different uses, and each of them was used in different ceremonies and celebrations. The water and sewage piping system in Persepolis is one of the most interesting points of architecture. Between the streets, the canals were dug in such a way that the rainwater and running water flowed in them and were guided through the canals in a specific direction. In general, the architecture of palaces, interior decorations, landscaping of Persepolis, the style of urban planning, the separation of residential areas from the royal residence, and the design of Persepolis, according to today's standards and after more than 2,500 years, are a proud document of ancient Iran. The buildings of Persepolis are more than 2,500 years old. In some parts of Iran, historical monuments left by the Elamites and early governments in ancient Iran have been discovered. However, due to its greatness and grandeur, Persepolis can be considered the most outstanding historical work from ancient times in Iran. The fame of Persepolis is global, and many of the world's famous museums keep samples of works discovered in Persepolis. Although Persepolis is located in Iran, it is considered a great treasure for all the people of the world in terms of its outstanding historical capacities and having signs of the oldest historical civilizations. Therefore, the name of Takht Jamshid as the second historical and cultural work in Iran was registered in the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1979. Visiting Persepolis in hot seasons can be annoying due to the open area of Persepolis and direct sunlight. The best time to travel to Persepolis is in the second half of the year, and you can visit Persepolis until the end of April. To visit the historical area of Persepolis, it is better to choose the early hours of the day or visit Persepolis in the afternoon and after the weather gets cooler. In the cold seasons of the year, after sunset, Persepolis and its surroundings are very cold, so wear appropriate clothes. Cloudy days are also very suitable for visiting Persepolis, because there is no direct sunlight. For more convenience, it is better to bring a hat and sunglasses. Among the most important works discovered in the Persepolis region, we can mention the stone inscriptions and reliefs carved in different parts of the palaces and buildings of this region. Due to the age of Persepolis, these findings are among the most important documents of early civilizations for history in the world, and scientists and researchers from all over the world have tried to decipher and read these inscriptions and works. Many parts of the lines carved on the inscriptions are read today, but these inscriptions are still being deciphered in different parts of the world. The works left in Persepolis are from the reign of Darius I between 552 and 486 BC, the reign of Xerxes between 486 and 465 BC, and the reign of Ardashir I between 465 and 425 BC. Although the tomb of these kings is located in Nakhsher-Rustam area near Persepolis, the palaces of their residence and kingdom were located in Persepolis, and these kings spent a long time of their reign in Persepolis. By carefully examining the statues, capitals, inscriptions, and other excavations in the Persepolis area, and considering the objects found in this area, experts have been able to find the tools used in the carvings. In most of the excavated works, molten lead was used to protect these works, as well as leather. Among the remaining architectural tools, the most basic engineering tools are also visible, which provide an image of the engineering method of buildings. Another feature of the discovered statues and sculptures is the remaining traces of paint on them. Although today there is not much effect of colors on these works, the use of ornamental stones, various colors, and decorations on these works are quite clear, and the reason for the remaining of many carved parts with full details is to protect the color from the layers below. The ornaments on the statues, as well as the decorations on the hair and faces, were done with gold and precious stones, of which only their empty places can be seen today. There is no information about the exact time of the excavations, and it is not possible to determine how long the carvings took, but the subtle depth of the work shows the months and maybe years of effort of stone carving artists. Embossed motifs of Persepolis can be seen on all palaces. The main palaces in the center of Persepolis, the south and southwest palaces, and the eastern palaces of Persepolis are all decorated with reliefs. The carvings of relief motifs can be seen on the entrances, the entrance stairs of the palaces, frames, and windows. In most of these motifs, Achaemenid kings are praised standing or sitting on the throne. The reliefs on the eastern side and the entrance staircase of Apadana Palace are less damaged than other carvings. In these reliefs, the king along with his guards, courtiers, horses, and chariots and court elders are carved. A long line of soldiers is depicted on the stairs. The number of motifs carved on the walls of Apadana Palace exceeds 800. The same image was carved in reverse on the northern wall of Apadana Palace, which unfortunately suffered a lot of damage. Outside the southern steps, Persian archers, and inside the palace servants with special cover are carved. One of the most famous remaining structures in Persepolis are the columns and column heads discovered in Persepolis. These columns are very long and heavy, and their construction method is still very interesting for architects and archaeologists. The columns of Persepolis are a document of the greatness of the buildings that have disappeared today, but by looking at these columns, you can understand the glory of the palaces in the past. The columns of Persepolis were a small part of the Achaemenid palaces. Of the 72 pillars of Apadana Palace, only 14 remain today. Each of these columns was more than 20 meters high and weighed 85 tons. In Apadana Palace, each of the 3 porches of the palace was built with the help of 12 rows of columns. In the eastern porch, the statues of 2-headed lions are seen on the pillars, but the statues in the western porch are in the form of cows. The capitals of the main hall are also designed in the shape of a cow, and the remaining traces of paint on them show that they were colored in the past. The grooves and patterns of all these structures are similar to each other, and only differences in details are visible. Although these structures have moved away from their past glory, all the statues have indescribable beauty and elegance. The pillars and column heads of Persepolis have become symbols of this ancient region, to the extent that in many pictures published in the world of Persepolis, you can see these columns and the heads of the columns. Even today, samples made from these images are used as a symbol of ancient Iran in many new buildings. The site of Persepolis consists of different parts. In general, the buildings and palaces of Persepolis were built in the middle flat area, and the south, southwest, and east sides of this area. There is a staircase at the entrance of the complex, which leads to a wider space. Entrance staircase. The entrance staircase consists of two parallel rows of stairs. The distance between the stairs is cobblestone, and the stairs continue in a zigzag pattern to the top and reach the vast area of the palaces at a height of 12 meters. The height of these stairs is short and you can easily climb them. It seems that this short design of the stairs was carried on animals for the ease of movement in them. Of course, entering the interior of the palaces was not allowed, and it was considered disrespectful to the king. On the way of the stairs, there are small shelters with a height of about 64 centimeters, and rectangular niches are built inside them. Of course, today many parts of this shelter have disappeared. The building blocks of the stairs are also large stones that are placed on top of each other without mortar. 4 or 5 steps have been carved from each large piece of stone, and today, corrosion and wear can be seen in many parts of them. The end of the stairs leads to the Gate of Nations. Gate of all nations. After the entrance staircase, at a distance of 22 meters from the end of the staircase, there is a small palace known as Gate of Nations. The reason for this name was the arrival of representatives of different nations from this route and the entrance to other palaces. There is evidence that this palace was built during the time of Kashay Shah. The palace may have been built during the time of Darius, but its construction dates back to the time of King Xerxes. The Gate of Nations is a palace with tall brick walls and 4 tall columns, which has 3 entrances. The size of the main hall reaches more than 600 square meters. The roof of the palace is 18 meters and the columns are about 16 meters high. The columns of the Gate of Nations are currently among the most complete columns remaining in Persepolis. The lower part of these columns is bell-shaped and has vertical grooves, and on top of the column, a round stone is placed on the grooved cylinder. On the round stone, there is a flower column, which is full of patterns and flowers and leaves, and on it, the headstone is seen in the form of a cow's torso. The Treasury of Persepolis. The Treasury of Persepolis is located to the east of Persepolis Museum and to the south of 100 Pillar Palace. The remains of this great building are surrounded by high walls and separated from the surrounding palaces by wide streets. This building, which is one of the first buildings built in Persepolis, was built during the time of Darius the Achaemenid and was initially used as an administrative building. In the western part of the Treasury building, there are small soldiers' rooms, and in the east, there is a large courtyard overlooking pillared porches and several halls. The interior of the Treasury consists of 3 halls each with 4 columns, a room with 2 columns and 2 large halls with a corridor between them. The pillars of the building were all wooden and had many carvings. In the excavations between 1331 and 1333 in the north of the Treasury building, 2 heads of double-headed eagle columns were found, which were most likely built for the entrance of one of the palaces, but they did not have the opportunity to move them. Elamite inscriptions with themes related to the rights and benefits of workers and the method of cash payment to them have also been found in the Treasury. The number of these boards reaches more than 600, and from them, detailed information on the division of work, the nationality of workers, and equal rights for men and women has been obtained. Also, based on these documents, the hypothesis of construction of Takht Jamshid buildings by other nationalities is destroyed. Along with the discovery of these inscriptions, there are also patterns decorated with the seal of employers, which seem to be important historical documents. Archaeologists found out from the findings of the Treasury that there was a big fire in this building, which destroyed many documents. Palace of 100 Pillars or Throne Hall. The 100-Pillar Palace or Thaler Takht was the second largest palace in Persepolis. This palace is known by this name because of the presence of 100 columns in its central hall. Of course, before finding this palace, 100 pillars were found in smaller sizes in the Treasury building of Persepolis, but because of the greatness of this palace, they named this building as 100 Pillars. Khajjar Shah's Palace or Hadish. Khajjar Shah Palace is another famous palace of Persepolis, which is known as Hadish Palace, and according to what is engraved on the inscriptions, this palace was built by the order of Khajjar Shah. Khajjar Shah Palace is located on the eastern side of Palace and south of the flat area of Persepolis. Although archaeologists have estimated the construction of the palace during the reign of Xerxes, there are signs of the beginning of the construction of this building during the time of Darius the Achaemenid. Hadish Palace extends in the west-east direction and its height reaches 18 meters above the level of the plain. The area of the Hadish Palace is about 1,500 square meters, and it has access to the Dariush Palace and the palace through its western and northeastern stairs. The western staircase is still there, but the eastern staircase is gone, and what can be seen today is their reconstructed form in recent years. The palace. Ardeshir-I Palace, which is also known as Palace H, is one of the palaces of Persepolis, which is left in the southwest of Takht and on the west side of Hadish Palace. The carved stairs that overlook this palace from both sides are now left in a semi-ruined state. The main staircase, according to the written fragment left behind, belongs to a building that was started by King Xerxes and finished by Ardeshir-I. The western and southern edge of the main building has a congress, which shows the horns and head of a bull. Tilia, the restorer of Persepolis, and his wife have taken out some of these congresses from the ground at the bottom of the palace and installed them in their place. The meaning of these cow-head congresses is not clear, and whether they were shelters or symbols is still unclear. These congresses are one among big and small and decorated with patterns like arrows. The three-door palace or the central palace. Three-door palace is called Central Palace because it is located in the center of Persepolis. The name of Dari was also chosen because of the presence of three entrances in the hall of this palace to connect with the surrounding palaces. The hall of the Central Palace has been the place for holding consultation meetings and official and informal meetings with foreign guests and court dignitaries, and the pictures of the court dignitaries have been carved on the stairs of this palace. For this reason, this palace is also called Council Palace and Shah's Gate. One of the interesting points in the design of the carvings of the entrances of the palaces in Persepolis is the direction of the face and movement of the king and the soldiers in these images, so that archaeologists have been able to find the entrances and exits of the palaces based on this. Another interesting thing is the carved images of representatives of different nations on the walls of the stairs. Therefore, by examining these images, experts have been able to determine the nationalities of different people who came to the palaces. Based on the images on the doors and walls of the three-door palace, the eastern door is considered to be the main entrance to the hall of this palace, and 28 images of people with different coverings on the walls carrying the king and respecting him are considered to be a symbol of the Achaemenid kingdoms. Bar Palace or Apadana. Apadana Palace, which is also known as Bar Palace, was one of the most beautiful and magnificent buildings of Persepolis, which was built during the reign of Darius I and his successor, King Xerxes. The construction of this palace took nearly 30 years, and similarities have been found between this palace and Darius's palace in Susa. The main hall is square and has 36 columns and 3 porches in the north, east and west. Each of the porches also had 12 columns. Out of all these 72 columns of Apadana Palace, only 14 are left and one of them has been restored. On the 4 sides of the Apadana Hall, 4 towers were built along with guard rooms. The beauty of the Apadana Hall in the past is indescribable, and examining the details of this hall shows that countless artists have contributed to the construction of the Apadana Palace. This hall has a capacity of more than 10,000 people. The heads of the columns of the palace were decorated with the statues of 2-headed cows, and at the bottom of the columns, 2 small and large pieces of stone were placed on top of each other. On the adobe walls of the palace, gutters were installed for the rainy season so that the accumulation of rainwater does not cause the roof to fall, and they were covered with green and gray plastering. The exclusive palace of Darius or Thatcher. Darius I's Achaemenid palace is known as Thatcher Palace. This palace is one of the first buildings built in Persepolis. Thatcher Palace is located in the southwest of Apadana Palace and facing the south and the sun. For this reason, Thatcher Palace is also known as the Winter Palace. On the other hand, the elegance of the architecture and the polished cutting of the stones in the building of this palace have made it known as Mirror House and Mirror Hall. Among the carved images on the walls overlooking the stairs, 3 figures with different appearances can be seen, which are attributed to servants, court eunuchs, and Persians. In these pictures, the servants are carrying real lambs. In the southern walls, there are several majlis with symbols of Persepolis and motifs such as Farkiani, Shah, Prince, and Sphinx statue. An inscription in ancient Persian can also be seen on this wall, the theme of which is the praise of Ahura Mazda from the language of Xerxes and the extent of his rule. On the right side of the inscription, the Elamite translation is engraved, and on the left side, the Babylonian translation of the inscription is engraved. The same inscriptions have been quoted in the other 2 parts of Thatcher Palace. Royal tombs. In the northeast of the stone well and near the 100-pillar palace, remains of a mansion with remains of a stone tomb can be seen in it. The stones of this building with a porch are also placed on top of each other without mortar, and the whole building is built on a platform. The carved tomb can be seen in the east of this building, and it seems that its cruciform shape was taken from the tombs of Nakhsher-Rustam, although the lower arm of the cross has been left unfinished. During the Achaemenid era, the religious beliefs of the kings and people were that the human body after death should not pollute the three pure and holy elements, i.e., water, earth, and fire. Therefore, they looked for another way to bury their dead. Zoroastrian crypts, stone tombs, and large stone chests that used to hold mummified bodies were alternatives to burial or cremation. Wonders of Persepolis. The construction of Persepolis mansions dates back to more than 2,500 years ago. For this reason, the observance of some points in the construction of the building and the way of doing this work, the details of which are found in the inscriptions, are considered among the wonders of Persepolis today. Simultaneously with the construction of huge palaces in Persepolis, slavery was prevalent in other great empires of the world, and construction work and hard and heavy work were part of the duties of slaves. But in Iran and in the seat of the Achaemenid government, not only men and women were paid for their work, but according to the documents left in the inscriptions, the workers were insured and benefited from various benefits. In the design and construction of the columns of Persepolis, they used the geometric golden rule and connected the inside of the columns with hot lead. For this reason, the columns left from the fire of Persepolis were able to remain strong against various earthquakes and natural disasters. Wooden columns with two stone heads are among other strange and remarkable designs in the architecture of Persepolis. Apadana Palace was placed on 72 20-ton columns, and considering the size of the palace and the weight and distance of the columns, how the weight of the palace can be supported by these columns is questionable. A two-headed lion statue weighing more than 1.5 tons was placed on each pillar. On both sides of the Apadana Palace, there are 2 rows of stairs, along which soldiers, government heads and kings can be seen. The number of bas-reliefs was very large, and few of them remain today. However, none of the pictures show signs of captivity, war, and bloodshed. Among the other interesting things in the architecture of the palaces in Persepolis, we can mention the short brick and clay gutters in the roofs and between the walls, open channels, and stone wells. The canalization and water and sewage piping system in Persepolis has also attracted the attention of archaeologists. In order to protect the entire buildings of Persepolis, long columns have been placed on top of each other by carving, and the presence of these carvings makes the building more resistant to earthquakes. There is no mortar between the capitals, flower columns, and their bases, and these parts are placed on top of each other only by using balanced chisels. The palaces were built by stacking large stone slabs, and simple levers were used to move these stones. These levers had the ability to move stones weighing 250 tons. The extraction and transportation of these large pieces from the mines to the palaces are one of the biggest wonders in the construction of the palaces of Persepolis. In the past, The images carved on the walls of Persepolis were decorated with jewels and precious stones and colorful carvings, which today are not a trace of them. Fine carvings in parts of the buildings are also very surprising and show the advanced tools of stonemasons in the past. In the stone inscriptions left from the Achaemenid period in Persepolis, they have discovered a thoughtful description of how social laws were established. According to the information read by Western archaeologists, during the Achaemenid period in Iran, men and women had equal social rights. Women could work and benefited from special support during pregnancy and childbirth. Inheritance rights were the same for men and women. This social equality 2,500 years ago in ancient Iran is one of the biggest reasons for the surprise of historians. Thank you for being with me until the end of the clip. If you enjoyed this clip and you love tourist places, don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.